This is the first of this type of seaming tool that I made. I made it after reading about a tool devised by an Italian named Claudio. I believe that his and others who've used a similar thing usually clamp it in the middle and use shims on either side and bend the beam this way. I preferred to hold it out at the ends and bend it out in the middle so that the panel I'm working with is hanging off the board. But either way, the main thing is to have a beam you can bend and to be able to bend it in a controllable fashion. And I might say even I just eyeball, but you're capable of a fair amount of precision if you're using a machine screw. I mean, after all, a micrometer is not much more than a 440 thread, and you count the number of turns and partial turns, and you can get it accurate to 1/1000th of an inch. I found after I put in the bolts to spring the channel, I'll show you this. This is a channel aluminum, and it's held to angle iron that is firmly attached to the board here with screws, wood screws. I found that when I would space this thing out, and then when it was time to take it off, that it wouldn't reliably go back to being straight. And that's when I added these, and I can pull it down flat with those. But it's a pretty simple concept, and I think, as I said, my eyeball does a pretty good job of figuring out about how much curvature I need according to the panels and sails I'm working with. Since I was about to give a seminar on sail making, I made two more. This is a strip of plexiglass with a board, and again I'm using machine screws to push it out and wood screws to restrain the movement. I have other places here I can place the wood screws and some other holes that I tapped for this machine screw so that I can handle various widths of seams. This is my favorite. The plexiglass works pretty well for bending and for taping too. This one is similar, except that instead of plexiglass on the bending strip, I have a strip of wood. And you can make these too. All of the hardware in this one, everything but the board, I picked up at Ace Hardware, and in particular you can get the taps you need for these machine screws at Ace Hardware, or you could work out a way, I suppose, where you epoxied a nut, but I think the taps probably work a little bit better. I'm down to the next to the last seam on the jib. As I've gone up the sail, I've tried to put a little more curvature into it by having a little more extra material, or more extra material in some cases over a shorter span. Take that bend out of the beam and get the wrinkling material. Apply the tape. Rub it down good. Good bond. This black material is a little harder to see the marks, but it's okay. They're there and I see them. Which leaves just one seam to go. So now there's the jib all taped together with the pattern on top of it. I'm getting ready to trace the outline and then cut it to size. So here's the jib all cut out. We'll now give it a shape test. And that looks pretty good. It's got a little more curvature than I maybe would want, but we'll see what it looks like once it's on the boat. That may all come out of it. I've got a pretty bad wrinkle up there in that polycarbonate, but I think I can iron that out. If I hadn't thought I could, I wouldn't have put it into the panel to start with. And here's the main, ready for its curvature test. This is the way we iron our sails. I experimented with scrap until I found what seems to be an acceptable heat setting if I iron through a piece of paper. It's not going to be perfect, but it's take the worst of the wrinkles out. If I bought new material here, it would have come wrinkle-free. But that's one of the nice things about making your own sails. Even if you mess up, you only replace a panel or two, and you can do all kinds of experimenting. If you want to have one rig for heavy air and another rig for light air, go to it. It's not that expensive. The setting I used is a little bit on the low side of permanent press. And again, I was mainly going after the polycarbonate coated ripstop nylon, not the tri-spy. But I think you can do somewhat the same with tri-spy. Just try it on scrap first, and mostly try not to get wrinkles in it in the first place. I already have the reinforcements on the other side of the head of the main. Now we'll get this side. Doesn't hurt to have a little overlap. You can trim it off afterwards. I've already trimmed the other side. Oops, it's not quite far enough up. There, that will do. The other one. I like 6 layers of reinforcement, 3 to a side. You may be able to get away with 4, but it sure is upsetting when the eyelet pulls out of the head of the sail, say. rub it down well to get it firmly adhered. Lift it free of the table and trim it. These inexpensive stamped stainless scissors work real well if you keep the edges clean. You can use acetone to remove the glue and whatnot, or just a fingernail or a sharpening stone. You want a nice right angle edge on it, and from time to time you have to kind of tweak them like this to keep them in good contact, but otherwise they work well and they're cheap.